Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Hello and welcome to Share Talk. Today I'm joined by Al Sisto, who is CEO at Tern PLC. How are you today, Al?
Hi, Zach. I'm fine, although under house arrest here.
Okay,
with the stay in place edicts.
Right. Well, we're staying in place, but you managed this week to release your final results, and there was also a bit of news about Wild. It would be good if you just ran us through, the highlights as you see them, perhaps.
Well, first I want to thank our audit firm for the Herculean effort it required to get the financial results audited in a traditional way without having physical contact. It was a unique experience, to say the least. But I think in looking at the results, the important takeaways are that, in terms of our key metrics, our portfolio revenues were up 27% over the prior year. And I think this is an important measurement because it's also affected by the law of large or small numbers. And as our portfolio top-line performance grows, having a two-digit percentage increase in revenues is, I think, an important factor in creating value within that portfolio. Also, the headcount increased in the portfolio companies by 31% year over year. Again, a measure of the business's need to have resources to fulfill the requirements of the market, the partners and the customers. And I think, again, this reflects value creation within these businesses. And then some critical successes during 2019 was the syndication of the Fundamental deal, one in which we were early investors in and followed and were able to create a uplift in our net asset value, but also an uplift in the value of Fundamental in the marketplace. And we think this is a representation of our ability to find important companies that have disruptive abilities that with a little bit of work, we have attracted both financial investors as well as strategic investors like the Mayo Clinic and the Sana Hospital Group in Germany to be part of the program. And lastly, we have now fully formed our Wild Networks operation, announced the filing of the patent, the systems patent around the technologies, and are in the marketplace with what I believe is a very interesting new company that we've created by rolling up a number of businesses into one cohesive breakthrough kind of way of doing communications that I think are going to be important in the future, particularly now with COVID changing the way we work.
Right, and in terms of what Wild does, there are a few interesting sort of bells and whistles to the technology. Could you run us through that?
Yes, good question. I think with Wild, particularly in looking at what contributions it could possibly make in this new way of working, the mesh networking part of the product, in conjunction with its what we call fusion, or the ability to curate data, is really I think going to have a play in this new world order. Wild Networks has the ability to maintain privacy through its mesh networking technology, such that it can maintain the anonymity of the holder of the device, in this case a phone, be it Apple or an Android phone, as well as set up criteria for geofencing, for example. So the idea of being able to have a one phone be in proximity of 2 meters to another phone to collect the fact that these two phones were together at one point in the past 14 days, for example, is a critical factor in later on determining if one of the owners of those phones became ill. Messaging could be sent to the phones of proximity, the 2 meter proximity to the person who became ill to provide a warning or an alert to the other holders of other phones. But this is done without the knowledge of who owns the phone and where you were and what was going on at the time. So I think there's capabilities here that are important. But what I think is even greater of importance is the ability to curate the data such that better analysis of what's going on within the population can be delivered to the medical and caregiving operations that are trying to figure out the best ways to deal with this situation. So we see this as one of the really critical aspects of what we can deliver with Wild, particularly in the healthcare area. And then, the same capabilities extend into agriculture and a number of other areas, which we believe are, again, important to our ability to deliver ESG benefits from our investment. So we're excited about Wild, and we think there's possibilities here to make a contribution.
Right, and just to clarify, the technology sounds quite cutting edge in the sense that your 2 meters is a pretty tight window in terms of distance, etc. Is this technology, is it ready to go now? Is it actually completed, or is it something which might take another few months and a few more tweaks to get it right? Where are we in that particular journey?
I believe the technology is ready to go, and like with all technology, as we deploy it in earnest, we'll discover things that that we will add to it as well as need to improve. But I think with regard to the challenges that we face today, it has the ability to provide valuable insights into how crops are doing within the fields, how people are responding to staying in place or not staying in place, or how care homes and hospitals are either being successful or unsuccessful. So I think we're ready to go with this product and this technology.
All right, just finally, I think we haven't spoken for quite a while, and I think now things have changed. Obviously, you're further down the road with, presumably with Device Authority and other ventures that you have. An issue as far as funding is concerned. Are you comfortable? Obviously, there's been a convertible loan note raised for Wild, which is, clearly a very exciting area and a business there that you've just described. But overall, is the portfolio in a comfortable place? Obviously, given that we're in a slightly unusual scenario with the pandemic as well. How are you placed at the moment?
I think we're placed as best as one could be placed in this unusual world. I think we saw some signs of this earlier in the end of January, beginning of February, and did a placing at that time to make sure we had sufficient capital on board to navigate through this event, or try to navigate through this event, undefined as much as it is undefined. And with I think some of the support from the government programs, we feel pretty confident that there is substantial capability for our businesses to continue, as well as our businesses are in many cases contributing to solutions. For example, Fundamental with its training programs and now its new capability to do at-home training for ventilator instructions for the new non-traditional ventilators that are being deployed. We're contributing in that capability. So there's funding within the aspects of each of our companies. And then just to touch on the convertible loan note for Wild, I think it's a very important step for Wild and for us and our shareholders, in that we believe that the value of Wild is substantially undermined by the events, as well as the ability for it to provide some additional proof points over the next 3 or 4 or 5 months are such that by using this convertible loan note instrument, we will be able to unlock some of the value through performance and do a fundraising like we did at Fundamental, a syndicated fundraise at Wild that will have an impact to net asset value and our net asset value per share. So it's very difficult times, and we're navigating through it. In fact, one of the things we do is a CEO call every week with our CEOs to deal with employee health and safety, business and customer values and responses, and our ability to integrate our efforts, and it's really having a positive impact. The synergistic nature of our portfolio is providing our companies with ways to introduce customers to other portfolio companies that have a requirement that could be fulfilled, like the training, for example, from Fundamental, that has short-circuited the length of time to get things started, and have generated better results as a consequence.
Well, just finally, a more upbeat question, or upbeat note, or almost a statement to end on. What we've seen since COVID's arrived on the stock market is that practically the only two areas that have actually blossomed for investors in a meaningful way, or a sort of upbeat way, has been tech stocks and pharma stocks. Clearly, you're in the former category there, and it's almost like it seems to be almost like a mini .com boom for online and anything which is tech related, or obviously any technology which is COVID related. Have you felt the love as far as this new phase of the market is concerned?
I think our shares have performed well since the placement. Not extraordinarily over the top, but I think our volumes have been extraordinary. But we have continuously been a very liquid, a very float intense equity on the market, and I think we're building more respect for what we're doing within the portfolio. We have in the 4 principal companies, they're all at different stages of their development, with Device Authority being the most mature, and Wild now being the newest of the groups coming into product performance kind of contributions to the business. So I think we're feeling across the board the relevance of our companies, and I think this is important for our shareholders, in that we believe that at this point, particularly with the unfortunate events that we're facing, our companies have products that are must-haves rather than nice-to-haves, and that's being reflected in what they're doing with their companies, their people, and their abilities to generate additional proof points. I think one other thing that is important to mention, that is not related to the COVID thing, but in related to your question about funding, is that we have in the past year we raised $3.25 million in new funding for these businesses, which are growth businesses, which are expanding in staff and expanding in scope. And what I think is important for our shareholders is to note that, of that, we put 76% of it to work immediately. The monies that we've raised have been placed in the companies that are part of our portfolio, and I think
Sisto, CEO, Tern PLC, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you for your interest. I always enjoy speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.